Hare Krishna. On this most auspicious day of Pandav Nirjala Ekadashi, we would like to begin our discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So, I would like to begin with offering obeisances, which is prayer, obeisances prayers, which is called as Mangalacharan. So, you can repeat after me. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितां तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमस्तुते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गे राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Thank you. So we will continuing after offering the Mangalacharan prayers. We'll continue. So Sankaracharya, he describes Bhagavad Gita as a river of nectar flowing from the mouth of Lord Shri Krishna. And this river of nectar was actually flowing for his devotee Arjuna. And we can also take advantage of this, the nectar which has been flowing from the mouth of Shri Krishna, by reading the purports given by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So the reason, why Bhagavad Gita was spoken was actually it's a Lord Krishna's compassion for the living being. The living being, is struggling in this material world, and Krishna, being compassionate on this living being, he descends himself from time to time and he gives this message of Srimad Bhagavad Gita for all the living entities. Now, Srila Prabhupada says that this Bhagavad Gita is our basic practical preaching book. We must know the Bhagavad Gita inside out. Meaning we should study this Bhagavad Gita very sincerely, right from the beginning to end, and understand every word of it. And then once we understand, then we can apply that principles given in Bhagavad Gita that will help to govern our external activities of life. So that's the reason one must study the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, not in isolation, but as a cohesive unit, or which fits together. Like we have some basic understanding about what is. Sometimes we know that what is soul, what is the difference between soul and body. Sometimes we also know the terms like karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, or bhakti yoga. And sometimes you've heard or seen that Krishna has shown the universal form to Arjuna. So we know part of it, but then how does all these things fit together? This is what is needed to be known. And the attempt of this class is to systematically go, page by page, word by word, and study this, the translation and the purport which is given by Srila Prabhupada in details. So this class, the attempt will be, as I said earlier, that it will be to understand or build the philosophy from chapter 1 to chapter 18. In fact, we'll begin even before chapter 1. We'll go through the beginning sections which has been written before the starting of the Bhagavad Gita. This is my third attempt to study Bhagavad Gita. First time I studied under His Grace Radhakrishna Prabhu, and it took about like 4 or 5 years to study. He taught us Bhakti Shastri course, and then the second time I studied was when I was teaching the Bhakti Shastri course, and this is the third attempt where I'll be systematically going and studying each and every purport and fix all those errors in the slides which I have already prepared for this Bhagavad Gita course. So, having said that, we will start with the setting the scenes of Bhagavad Gita. So, let's go to setting the scenes. So, we know that before writing any book, or you must have seen before any book is written, you will see different sections are written. Sometimes you'll see preface or prologue or setting the scene or forward or introduction. So there's a purpose of that. Like the preface is generally written by the author himself, and he gives the introduction to the literary work, and that is preface. And he also acknowledges it, to all the people who have helped. So that's the preface. Now, when in some kind of novel or story, the part of the story is sometimes given in prologue, and it sets up the environment for the novel which is being written. Right. Similarly, there are sometimes setting the scene, and that is given by the publisher. So here also, you will see that the setting the scene is written by the publisher. Normally, there is another section that could be like forward. So forward is written by some other person. Normally, it is written by some respectable person who knows the author as well as who knows the audience. And the forward, the person who is writing the forward will introduce the author. So he's like a bridge between the author and the audience. And sometimes you'll see the introduction. In introduction, the author will give the introduction to the book and the content of the book. Sometimes he'll introduce himself. So various ways. You will find different sections in different books. So in Bhagavad Gita, as it is, you will see this setting the scene. It begins with this setting the scene. So this setting the scene gives you, this was actually specially written for the Western audience, because this book Bhagavad Gita begins with the first thing, the first starting point of the book is it suddenly starts that what is happening in the battlefield. So this is how the book starts. So somebody who doesn't have any background will get confused. So this particular setting the scene, or even part of preface and introduction, is preparing the background for the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. So it is specially written for the Western audience, and it prepares the background so that when they start reading, they don't get confused. So it gives you the historical context of the Bhagavad Gita, where it was spoken, why it was spoken, and it also tells that whatever the Bhagavad Gita which has been given here by Srila Prabhupada is actually as it is. There is no interpretation to the work done by Srila Prabhupada. So having said that, we will start going into the depth of setting the sense. Okay. So it begins with the history of Bhagavad Gita. Setting the scene begins with the history of Bhagavad Gita. So there is a presentation which I will share the link where it is available. So the presentation goes like this, it's page by page. The presentation is there, but in the notes I have incorporated those presentation pages wherever I felt it required, and I put it there so that we don't have to keep on switching, and we can directly look at the slides here. This will all be available for you to download and read it yourself. So let's start. History of Bhagavad Gita. Although widely published and read by itself, Bhagavad Gita originally appears as an episode in Mahabharata. So Bhagavad Gita is actually a part of Mahabharata, the epic Sanskrit history of ancient world. The Mahabharata tells of events leading up to the present age of Kali. It was it was at the beginning of this age, some 50 centuries ago, it's about 5000 years ago, that Lord Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to his friend and devotee Arjuna. So here we see Krishna is speaking Gita to his friend Arjuna. And going back is the narration of Mahabharata, which was actually composed 5000 years back by Vyasdev. Actually, Vyasdev spoke and Ganesha wrote it. So in Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita appears in the Bhishma Parva. So there are different sections of Mahabharata. One of the section is called as Bhishma Parva. And in the Bhishma Parva, the Bhagavad Gita appears there. So it appears as an episode of Mahabharata. And it is one of the greatest philosophical and religious dialogue which just happened before the war. And this dialogue is happening between Arjuna and Krishna. Arjuna is asking various set of questions and Krishna is replying. So Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he claims himself to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Lord. So anything spoken by him has to be at most important. So he speaks or he gives answers to the questions of Arjuna, who is one of the warrior, and Arjuna was a friend and devotee of the Lord. So this is what is going on here. Their discourse, one of the greatest philosophical and religious dialogues known to men, took place just before the onset of the war. A great fratricidal conflict between 100 sons of Dhritarashtra and on the opposing side their cousins the Pandavas or son of Pandus. So this war is between the cousin brothers which are from the same family, which is the Kuru family or Kuru dynasty. So this picture actually gives the picture of the whole dynasty. And if we see here, Dhritarashtra and Pandu were brothers born in the Kuru dynasty, descending from King Bharata, a former ruler of the earth, from whom the name Mahabharata derives. So here in this picture, if you look at it, so here is Dhritarashtra and here is Pandu. They are all, both are coming from Vyasdev. They are sons of Vyasdev. And Vyasdev had the third child, which is Vidura. So Dhritarashtra, Pandu and Vidura. These are three brothers. Dhritarashtra is born blind. Pandu is not blind. He normally is good, but he has some health issues. And the third one is Vidura, who is perfectly fit and is highly intelligent person. So as and when time permits, even though we'll keep on narrating about the pastimes with these devotees. So continuing with the setting the scenes. So Dhritarashtra and Pandu were brothers born in the Kuru dynasty, descending from King Bharata, former ruler of the earth, from whom the name Mahabharata derives. Because Dhritarashtra, the elder brother, was born blind, the throne otherwise would have been his, was passed down to his younger brother Pandu. So Pandu got the kingdom, or Pandu got to rule, and Dhritarashtra, because he was blind, he was not allowed to rule. So Pandu had 5 sons: Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula and Sahadev. And Dhritarashtra, who was born blind, had 100 sons, and the eldest of that son, he also had one daughter. The eldest of the son is Duryodhana, who was very cunning and wicked. So this is the dynasty coming from the Kuru dynasty, and their grandfather was Bhishma Pitama. Bhishma was their grandfather. Okay. When Pandu died at an early age, his 5 children Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjun, Nakul and Sahadev came under the care of Dhritarashtra, who in effect became for the time being the king. Thus the son of Dhritarashtra and those of Pandus grew up in the same royal household. Both were trained in the military art by an expert Drona and counseled by the revered grandfather of the clan Bhishma. So after Pandu died, then Bhishma and Drona were their military teacher. They took care of the sons. Of course, they were actually also taken care by Dhritarashtra. So they took care of the sons of Pandu. uh, Yet the sons of Dhritarashtra, especially the eldest Duryodhana, hated and envied the Pandavas. So this is the issue that happened. Dhritarashtra, eldest son Duryodhana, he hated, and because the sons of Pandavas were very qualified, and that's one of the reasons that why Dhritarashtra really, Duryodhana really hated their sons, their cousins actually. And the blind and wicked-minded Dhritarashtra wanted his own sons, not those of Pandu, to inherit the kings. Thus Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra's consent plotted to kill the young sons of Pandu, and it was only by careful protection of their uncle Vidura and their cousin Lord Krishna that Pandavas escaped and many attempts against their lives. So there were many attempts made by Duryodhana and his party to kill the Pandavas. But what happened was Lord Krishna, who was the nephew of Pandu's wife, basically he was relative of Kunti. So he was nephew of Kunti actually, and Duryodhana's plans and whatever plans he made to kill the Pandavas failed all the time, because either Krishna or Vidura, they will come up with a plan to protect them. So this is how they were saved. So who is Lord Krishna? Now Lord Krishna was not an ordinary man, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, who had descended to earth and was playing the role of a prince in contemporary dynasty. In this role, he was also the nephew of Pandu's wife, Kunti or Pritha, the mother of the Pandavas. So, both as a relative and as an eternal upholder of religion, Krishna favored the righteous sons of Pandu and protected them. So, as we discussed earlier, like the Pandavas were always protected either by Vidura, who was his uncle, who was their uncle, and or they were also protected by Lord Krishna. So Lord Krishna, as this paragraph explains, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the Supreme Lord, and he has come to this earthly planet, to play some role, and that role was that he wanted to establish dharma. So that is one of the protect the devotees. He says in Bhagavad Gita chapter number 4 the reasons why he comes to this material world. It descends for solving certain purpose, which has, or solving certain things which has been broken. So when he comes, then he comes with his friends and relatives, or devotees who are acting as his friends and relatives. So some of the devotees take the role of his parents. Over here, Pandu's wife or Pandava's mother, who is Kunti. So Krishna is her nephew, and Krishna also played the part of a king when he descended in this world, and he always favored these righteous Pandavas and they protected them. So the next section is described about Duryodhana's atrocities. Ultimately, however, the clever Duryodhana challenged the Pandavas to the gambling match. In the course of that fateful tournament, Duryodhana and his brothers took possession of Draupadi and the chaste and devoted wife of Pandavas, and insultingly tried to strip her naked before the entire assembly of princes and kings. Krishna's divine intervention saved her, but the gambling, which was rigged, cheated the Pandavas of their kingdom and forced them into 13 years of exile. So they tried various methods to, they in the sense Duryodhana and his parties, they tried various methods to, you know, disturb the Pandavas. But they, in all the most of the attempts failed. In this particular attempt of gambling match, they succeeded. So they took away all the kingdoms of the Pandavas which they were ruling, and they also actually took over the possession of their wife and Draupadi, and actually they disrobed that. And after that, they sent the Pandavas into exile for 13 years. So this is what being said, that in the gambling match they defeated the Pandavas and they cheated, in whatever way was possible, and they took away all the kingdom, and they also tried to disrobe Draupadi, which is being depicted here. But Lord Krishna came for our protection. Next part is, so they were sent to after they were cheated, their kingdom was taken. They were forced for a 13 year of exile. And upon returning from the exile, the Pandavas rightfully requested their kingdom from Duryodhana, who bluntly refused to yield it. He didn't want to give. So he refused, that I don't want to give whatever I have taken it from you 13 years back. Duty bound as princes to serve is public administration. So these princes, they were all Kshatriyas actually. So the Kshatriyas must rule. So here, duty bound means according to Kshatriya Dharma, they have to perform the act of administration. So they didn't have desire, but out of duty they have to rule. In order to rule, they have to have a place to rule. So that's why they were requesting. So duty bound as princes to serve in public administration, the 5 Pandavas reduced their request to mere 5 villages. So they said, okay, just give us, if you don't want to give us our kingdom, that's fine, just give us 5 villages, nothing more than that we did to rule. But Duryodhana arrogantly replied that he would not spare them enough land into which to drive a pin, a head of a pin. So he basically didn't want to give anything actually. Throughout all this, the Pandavas had been consistently tolerant and forbearing, but now the war seemed inevitable. So this is what is depicted here. They didn't want to give the kingdom back, so the war was necessary, as well as war was going to happen. So before the war, before the battle of Kurukshetra, nonetheless, as the princes of the world divided, some siding the side of Dhritarashtra, others with the Pandavas, Krishna himself took the role of messenger of the sons of Pandu and went to the court of Dhritarashtra to plead for peace. So this 5 villages actually was proposed by Lord Krishna, that if you can give me 5 villages, that's it, the Pandavas won't ask for anything else. But Duryodhana didn't agree. So when his plea was received, his plea over here means Krishna's plea were received, the war was certain. The Pandavas, men of the highest moral stature, recognized Krishna to be the supreme personality of God, whereas the impious sons of Dhritarashtra did not. Yet Krishna offered to enter the war according to the desire of the antagonist. So when the war was happening, different people were taking different sides. So Krishna had a Narayani Sena, means huge number of soldiers in his kingdom. So Krishna proposed an offer that one side, because both of them were the relatives, so he gave them 2 offers. One side is Krishna himself with no military force or anything, and he would also not fight. The other side is his entire army. So naturally, somebody who doesn't know Krishna would ask for the army. So here, that's what Duryodhana did. As a god, he would not personally fight, but whoever so desired might avail himself of Krishna's army, and the other side could have himself as an advisor and helper. So Duryodhana wanted the army, and Arjuna wanted Krishna himself. So Duryodhana, the political genius, snatched at Krishna's armed forces, while the Pandavas were equally eager to have Krishna himself. In this way, Krishna became the charioteer of Arjuna, taking it upon himself to drive the frabbed bowman's chariot. So this is what normally uses a picture. This is how Krishna became the charioteer of Arjuna in the battle. He was a guide, the philosopher, and everything for Arjuna. This brings us to the point at which Bhagavad Gita begins, with the two armies arrayed, ready for combat, and Dhritarashtra anxiously inquiring of his secretary Sanjaya what did they do. So, as we saw earlier, the two parties, the war was imminent, and the two parties, they didn't budge, and finally the war was supposed to happen, and Krishna took basically Krishna was being chosen by Arjuna, and Krishna's army was chosen by Duryodhana. So when these armies, they all met at the battlefield of Kurukshetra, at that time Dhritarashtra was given, actually Vyasdev asked Dhritarashtra, would you like to see this war? And he said, no, I don't want to see it. You kindly gave it to Sanjaya. Sanjaya was his secretary. So the vision was given to his secretary that he could see everything what is going on in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So this is how Sanjaya could see what's going on. And Dhritarashtra is asking what is going on in this battlefield. And the next part is about the translation, regarding the translation and commentary of this book. So this is said that the scene is set with only the need for a brief note regarding this translation and commentary. So Srila Prabhupada's translation and commentaries are special actually. So it has been said over here, the general translation pattern translators have followed the rendering of Bhagavad Gita into English has been brush aside the person Krishna to make room for their own concepts and philosophies. So normally when somebody would do the presentation of Bhagavad Gita, the translator would give his own concepts and his own philosophy. The history of Mahabharata, is taken as a quaint mythology. So, and Krishna becomes a poetic device for presenting the ideas of some anonymous genius, or at the best he becomes a minor historical personage. So somebody who doesn't know or doesn't come in parampara, their translation or their way of understanding the scriptures would be different from somebody coming from the parampara. So they will brush aside the central character of Bhagavad Gita, which is Krishna, and then they will give their own meaning or interpreted meaning of the text of Bhagavad Gita. But in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself says that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's why this statement is there. But the person Krishna is both the goal and the substance of Bhagavad Gita, so far as the Gita speaks of itself. Hence, the translation which is given by Srila Prabhupada, so this translation then and the commentary that accompanies it proposes to direct the reader to Krishna rather than taking away from him. So this is the most important thing about this particular translation. Whatever Srila Prabhupada has given the translation is in line with what Krishna is going to give the message. Okay, so the Bhagavad Gita thus becomes wholly consistent and comprehensible. Since Krishna is the speaker of the Gita and its ultimate goal as well, the Bhagavad Gita as it is thus presents this great scripture in its true terms. So Prabhupada is not changing anything, he is not giving any of his interpretation for this particular book. He is presenting the book as it is. So thus ends the introduction. So my all attempt in these discussions will be also to present the message as it is. As Prabhupada has instructed us that the message should not be changed. Whatever message we receive in parampara has to be given as it is. So we just play a role of a postman who brings delivers the post. So he doesn't open the letters or anything. He just takes it from the office and it delivers it to home. So similarly, we carry the message, which is actually Krishna's message, which is not even invented by us. We carry the same message, and then what we do is we distribute or give the message as it is. So my attempt will be, sincere attempt would be to pass the message as it is. But while doing so, I'm sure that I'll make a lot of mistakes. So please forgive my mistakes. And if you have any questions while we are discussing this, please send me a note and we'll try to address that. But generally, these classes will be, I'll record it as I get time. Okay, so with this, I'll stop, and then the next section we'll begin with the preface. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भगवद गीता की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि बोल।